Welcome everyone to our second class together. Today we'll be focusing on the back and chest area of our bodies. These areas tend to be very tight as we spend most of our days hunched over and away, either by driving or at a desk. So the first pose we'll be looking to open up through the upper body a little bit more, starting in puppy. Coming from a tabletop pose with your palms underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips, start to walk your palms out in front of you and gently drop your head and chest towards the mat. So your forehead might rest down on the ground. If it doesn't quite make it, you can always rest your forehead down on a block or maybe down on a towel. If you're flexible throughout your lower back, you might notice that your belly tends to drop in a pose like this. So see if you can keep your abdominals slightly engaged so that the lower back stays nice and long. And with your palms shoulder width distance apart, feel your shoulder blades roll down your back so that you get a nice opening through the front of the body, deep into the shoulders and into the upper back. Start to settle into this pose, focusing on your breath. As always with these yin yoga poses, we're in these postures for a few minutes, so make sure that you're setting yourself up in a way that is sustainable, setting the pose up so that you can hold it for this extended period of time. There should be no pain. It should just feel like a really nice opening through the front body, so adjust however you need to, and remember that you can come out of the pose at any time. Maybe allow the eyes to close and focus on the sensations in your body. Letting gravity pull you down a little bit more with every exhale. Melting away tension from the jaw, neck, and shoulders. You're about halfway through the pose. Notice if any other areas of your body have started to compensate for the sensations you feel through the neck and shoulders. Try to commit to this stillness and stay within the sensation for these last 10 breaths. Start to come out of the pose by sliding all the way down onto your belly. We'll go a little bit deeper into the side body with this next pose. Start to turn over onto your right hip and keep your right forearm down onto the mat. Start to lift your head and chest off of the ground, maybe using your left palm down on the mat for support. Keeping both legs straight or maybe just a little bit of a micro bend for a little bit more support. You want to be feeling a stretch through the right side of your ribs from the hip all the way up into the shoulder. You can choose to keep your right forearm down onto the mat, or if you'd like to deepen this stretch a little bit more, you can start to straighten your right arm and really press your fingers and knuckles down into the mat. Remember to maintain space through the neck by relaxing the shoulders, and you can choose to keep your head centered here, or maybe it feels better to drop your chin in towards the chest or let one ear drop towards your right shoulder. Wherever you decide to settle in here, make sure you stay connected to your breath and maybe allow the eyes to close. If you had your right arm straight, start to bend the elbow. Come back over onto your belly and we'll switch sides, this time going over onto your left hip with your left forearm down onto the mat. Reach the crown of your head up as you lift head and chest off of the ground, stretching through the left side of your ribs. And maybe keep your left forearm down onto the ground or start to straighten the elbow, getting deeper into the pose. Remember to adjust however you need to on this side. Find your breath. Maybe allow the eyes to close. And focus on opening the left side of your body. Let's release this side and make your way back onto your belly. Keep your forearms flat down on the ground with your palms about shoulder width distance apart. Our next pose is Sphinx pose, getting a little bit deeper into the front of the chest. You'll decide how deep you go into this pose based on the angle of this back bend. So if the sensation is too much, you can walk your palms out in front of you and lessen the back bend. There should be no compression through your lower back. Alternatively, if you would like to go a little bit deeper into this pose, you can walk your elbows a little bit closer towards your body. And no matter where you are here, you want to feel your shoulders pulling back so that the collarbones can broaden. And instead of worrying about how high you get here, imagine that you can lengthen your spine and even grow an inch or two taller just from staying within this pose. Other modifications that you can do can be to widen the stance of your legs, especially if you do have lower back sensitivities. Otherwise, you can keep your legs a little bit closer towards each other. If you'd like to deepen this still, you can start to press your palms into the mat and maybe lift your elbows off of the ground, coming into seal pose instead. You have a few minutes in this pose, so play around and feel what works best for you. Let's take 10 more deep breaths here and see if you can feel the ribs spread from side to side and front to back as you create a little bit more space through the upper body. Notice if your mind starts to wander. See if you can bring it back to the present moment, focusing on the sensations in your body or focusing on the breath. Our next pose happens to be my favorite, and it's an excellent pose to get really deep into the chest muscles, deep into the pectorals. Start to lower all the way down, back onto your belly, back onto your chest. Bringing your left arm out to the side, bending your left elbow at a 90-degree angle. Start to turn onto your left hip. Keep your ear and head relaxed down onto the ground, and I find it useful to bend the knees here for a little bit more support. You can use your right palm to lightly press into the mat so that you can twist your body open, rolling right shoulder down and away from the ear. You want to be feeling an opening through the left side of your chest and maybe all the way down into your left bicep as well. Keep both shoulder blades down the back. Try to relax your head and neck as much as possible and breathe very deeply into these muscles that tend to be extremely tight from spending our time sitting down, driving, carrying heavy objects. Remember that you can back out of the pose at any time. See if you can find space and stillness. And we'll stay here for 10 to 20 breaths. Let's switch sides. Start to roll over back onto your belly. And this time bring your right arm out to the side, bending your elbow at a 90-degree angle. Rolling over onto your right hip as you bend your knees. Use your left palm to press down into the mat, to open up through the chest. Rolling left shoulder down and away from the ear and sending the stretch this time through the right pectorals and right side of your body. Keep your head and chest down onto the mat and try not to tense the jaw. Relax your facial muscles. Try to find ease in the pose. Gently roll yourself back over onto your belly, and we'll give our upper body a little bit more of a rest with a restorative pose. Pressing up onto hands and knees, keep your knees a little bit narrower than hip-width distance apart, and start to drop your head and chest down towards the mat with your arms alongside your legs. If your forehead doesn't quite make it down onto the ground, you can use a block or a bolster for a little bit more support. And just let your shoulders rest on the tops of your knees here. Breathe deeply into the lower back of the heart, in between the shoulder blades, creating a bit more of an opening through the back body. Halfway through the pose, notice if your mind has started to wander, or if you've started to distract yourself. See if you can come back to the present moment and tune back into the sensations in your body. Focus on letting go and letting gravity do most of the work for you. Start to bring your palms back towards your shoulders and use just a little bit of strength to be able to lift your head and chest off of the mat. Let's come into a seated pose next, moving your ankles out of the way and setting your hips down onto the ground. We'll be setting up for turtle pose. Bring the soles of the feet to touch so that the knees can fall apart, and instead of keeping your heels close towards your hips, make sure that there's quite a bit of distance between your heels and your hips so that your knees are about at a 90-degree angle. You can prop yourself up onto a block if you feel like you're rolling back, otherwise stay sitting exactly as you are. Find length through the spine on the inhale, and as you exhale, slowly start to fold forward. And you can allow the upper body to round down a little bit, but still feel as if you can reach the crown of your head forward and maintain length through the spine, so there's no compression or contraction through the abdomen. Rest your arms wherever is comfortable. I find it easiest to slide the forearms underneath my shins here, but if that doesn't work for you, then just go to wherever is easiest. If your forehead does not make it down onto the ground, you can keep it floating up or maybe use a few blocks for extra support. We are in this pose for a few minutes, so it is to your advantage to take the time to really set up the pose and figure out what will work best for your body. The transition out of the pose is just as important as the pose itself. So see if you can take 1 or 2 breath cycles to very gently walk your palms back in towards your hips, rolling 1 vertebrae at a time until your shoulders come back over top of your hips, being really mindful of your lower back as you do so. And from here, you'll need to grab a hold of 1 block. Our next pose is supporting bridge, and it's to help create a little bit more space through the lower body. Lowering yourself down onto your back. Keep your knees bent, feet flat on the ground, and press your feet down onto the mat as you lift your hips up and slide the block directly underneath your tailbone. You can try on the lowest or second level, it just depends what's going to feel best for you here. Try on the lowest level first if you're new to this pose. The placement of the block is extremely important. If you feel tension or compression in your lower back, it usually means that your block is a little bit too high up and you need to shift it down, so it really is directly underneath your tailbone. Take up as much space as you're comfortable taking with your upper body. And from here, it'll be your decision whether or not you want to keep your knees bent or maybe straighten your legs. Straightening the legs will make this a lot more intense through the lower back, so you might need to shift your block or back out of the pose entirely and keep your knees bent. One variation is not better than the other, they're just different ways to get into the pose. Once you figure out what's right for your body, start to settle down and let your hips be heavy on the block, relaxing shoulders down and away from the ears, and taking very deep belly breaths so that the belly button rises and falls with the rhythm of your breath. If you had your legs out straight in front of you, start to bend your knees so that the soles of the feet come back in contact with the earth. Let's get deeper into the hip flexors from here. Pull your right knee in towards your chest. If you're having difficulty holding onto the leg, a strap can be really useful here. And there's no need to pull too hard or too far. Just get a sense of opening through the left hip flexors. Keeping your hips settled on the block. Shoulders stay down on the mat. Stay relaxed through the neck. And take deep belly breaths. And let's switch sides, dropping the right foot back down onto the mat. Go ahead and draw your left knee in towards your chest. As always, upper body stays as relaxed as you can get it. Deep breaths all the way down into your right hip. Lower your left foot back down onto the mat. Press both feet into the ground so you can lift your hips a couple inches higher than the block and just go ahead and move the block out of the way, setting your hips back down onto the ground. For our last pose before we come into Shavasana, we'll come into a laying spinal twist. So go ahead and shift your hips a couple inches towards the right before dropping both knees over towards the left. Both arms go out to the side. Try to keep your right shoulder blade down onto the ground so that your collarbones face up towards the sky. If your knees don't quite make it down onto the mat, you can always put a block directly underneath them for more support. Alternatively, if you would like to go deeper in this twist, you can wrap your right leg over your left before dropping your knees down. Twists are a really great way to improve digestion and relieve any kind of lower back pain. So make the most out of your time in this pose by sending your breath directly into your lower back. Let's switch sides. Gently lift your knees back up to center and uncross your legs if you had that variation. Shift your hips a couple inches towards the left before dropping your knees over towards the right this time, making sure that your left shoulder stays in contact with the mat. You can always place a block under your legs for more support or to go deeper. This time you'll be wrapping your left leg over your right. Remember to breathe deeply into your lower back, alleviating any leftover tension in that area of your body, while softening the jaw and keeping the eyes closed. Taking 10 more very deep breaths right here. Lift both knees back up to center and let's make our way into Shavasana, our final resting pose. If it feels good to you, you can hug your knees in towards your chest or do any other little movements that you need to do before being able to fully relax and settle down onto the mat. Take up as much space as you're comfortable taking, with your palms facing up towards the sky, shoulders relaxed down and away from the ears. Gentle tuck of the chin to keep the back of the neck long. Allow the eyes to close as you settle into this pose. Let your breath come naturally to you. Bring your awareness to the front of your chest, deep into the heart. Focus on the muscles in your chest that you've opened throughout this practice. And now bring your awareness to your back body, from your lower back all the way up into your neck. Become aware of the space you've created there. Use your time in this pose as an opportunity to do a little bit of a body scan and become aware of any areas in your body that are still holding on to tension or tightness. Can you invite them to soften and let go? Allow your breath to flow in and out through you like a wave. Inhaling peace, calm, and ease. And exhaling tightness, tension, stress. Inhaling softness. And exhaling tension, in and out like a wave. Allow your limbs to be heavy and notice the subtle energy through your body. Thank you so much for doing this second class with me. I hope it helps you feel a little bit more open through the chest and back. Please stay as long as you would like to in this final resting pose, and when you do decide to come out of it, move slowly and mindfully. Thank you so much once more. Namaste.